And I am visual, but I'm also very much into feeling, and I can feel that.
We have a question for you. By visual, do you mean you're a good observer, or do you mean you're a good imaginer? Because there's a huge, important distinction between the two.
Well, I sort of had two questions, and one would be, I enjoy the spiritual part because I can feel that, and that's something tactile for me.
But that's not visual. That's not visual.
But when you used to talk about the grid and the vortex, get in the vortex, or your grid is attracting things and it's pulsating. My visual that I have trying to understand that was like some funnel cloud in a vortex. And
like that. Draws things into it, yeah.
And it's sort of like a tornado funnel cloud, and I'm not sure. I was just hoping you could give me more of a visual, which I'm kind of going off on my second question.
Well, the reason that we demonstrated it like that is because we wanted you to get the sense of the synergy of it, and that there is a sweeping up of cooperative components. When Esther was with Jerry in the very early days of her opening to us, she was lying in bed one night with her eyes closed, and what she describes as a huge purple vortex formed with her eyes closed in the room around her and came right into her forehead with such velocity. And then when she saw the movie Phenomenon, did any of you see it? That purple vortex was demonstrated in that movie, but they gave him a brain tumor. That was the reason for his purple vortex, which was really annoying to Esther, but she thought it was interesting that was and so it's the sweeping of the cooperative components in and the melding of them and the merging of them that we are wanting to demonstrate. Your point of attraction, your Earth spinning in its orbit, there's a point of attraction there. In other words, there's something to be said for that velocity and that momentum that does hold together. It's like that. So.
Okay, and the grid, the only thing I could visualize was a rebar or something.
Well, we've moved past the terminology about that because a lot of people have trouble with that structure. But the point of it was very important, and that is your point of attraction. You are what matters. In other words, first we wanted you to know that you came from Source. Some of you knew it, some of you didn't. Then we wanted you to know that while you're here, that larger part of you is still there and still calling you. Then we wanted you to know that you were sending rockets of expansion all day, every day, that the Source within you was receiving. And from that newly evolved stance, the Source within you is calling you to the completion of that idea and that idea and that idea. But then we have to make you understand that you're standing somewhere in relationship to that becoming. And because of the contrast that you're living all of the time, right, you are rarely standing right in the middle of all that you've become. Because as soon as you become it, something causes you to become something more. So there is always a gap between who you have become and who you are fully allowing yourself to be here in this physical body. That's what expansion and evolution is all about. So we want you to be aware of the gap, to be mindful of the gap, to not be afraid of the gap, to not resent it, but to accept that it is there and understand that the closing of the gap is where all of your feelings of elation come from and all of your feelings of relief come from. In other words, when you allow yourself to really be in this moment what you have reached for, when you finally let yourself be it, when you click into sync with the fullness of who you are, so that spawned the terminology, get into the vortex. If everything that you've become is in there, with our analogy, and it is theoretically accurate, it is actually accurate, then you got to find some way to close that gap. Well, people would say to us, how do you get in the vortex? How do you get in the vortex? We wrote a whole book about how to get in the vortex, what it feels like to be in there. And then we took a different approach. For those like you who are having a little bit of difficulty in understanding your point of attraction. So it's all there. It's already vibrationally accomplished. You're the last component that is not yet completely cooperative. Because if you were completely cooperative, the full manifestation would be evidence to you. So if there's something that you want that hasn't fully manifested, you're still being a little bit uncooperative. So now what we're talking about these days is how to improve that cooperation, how to become the cooperative component to your own becoming, to who you have already vibrationally become. How do you bring it home? How do you get the money out of the vortex and into the bank? How do you turn those thoughts to the things, to the actualizations, to the manifestations, to the seeing it, hearing it, smelling it, tasting it, and touching it? It is our promise to you. We know about the vibration, and we know about the ethers, and we know about law of attraction, and we know about the laws, and we see the way the energy moves. We can see the energy moving in this room. It's the way we choose you. It's the way we know that you're ready to come and have a conversation with us. But we are not wanting to guide you toward seeing the energy and playing with the energy. We want you to utilize the energy for the manifestations you've come to experience. You've come to be the manifester. You've come to be the liver, the creator, the full liver of. You've come to be the driver of the car and the liver in the house and the physical beingness that makes love with another physical beingness. In other words, you've come for the tangible, the tactile. You've come to bring creation to its fullest, most satisfying perspective, you see. So we want to find a way for you to bring it out of the vortex and into your reality. How do you actually create your reality and make it tangible, seeable, hearable, smellable, tasteable, touchable? How do you do that? Well, you have to know all that stuff we just said. And you have to know, you have to trust that you are standing here with a pliable, moldable, controllable point of attraction. Most people don't get that. Most people do not even try to control their point of attraction. They let what they're observing control it. So if they're looking at a condition that feels good to them, the condition is controlling them feeling good. And if they're looking at something that doesn't feel good to them, the condition is controlling they're not feeling good. But most people have not decided, hey, I want to feel good, and I will feel good, and I will train myself into perspectives that allow me more and more to feel good, because I'm going to tend to this point of attraction, because I'm going to raise my frequency to the level of what's in that vortex. And when you do, what's in the vortex just wafts, flows, avalanches into your experience in the form of emotions that feel rapturous, ideas that are exhilarating, manifestations that just knock your socks off, manifestations that leave people standing around in amazement. What's going on with you? They're making up all kinds of stories about why that's happening for you, but they don't know. They do not know that you worked to accomplish a point of attraction that allowed yourself to be the perfect vibrational match. In essence, you got in the vortex. Maybe it's more visual for you to get in the vortex where all that is, but we've already explained to you, when you're in the vortex, you can't see it, and you can't hear it, and you can't smell it, and you can't taste it, and you can't touch it. But over here where you are, you can. You're seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting and touching. You're translating vibration all day, every day. So now you've learned to use your emotions to bring yourself to a vibrational stance where you can now see and perceive. Perception is the word, where you can now perceive what's been there all along. You were just zigging while it was zagging, you see. And so this is a big conversation we have, because most people don't easily grasp the concept of ideas evolving into something that you can see and hear and smell and taste and touch. But that's exactly what's going on here. Most people think this planet is the tangible thing that they see it to be. They don't understand that it is a perceptual platform that has been perceived by so many perceivers for so long that you call it solid, knock on wood, real life reality. And we say, it's just been thought upon longer, and it's continued to be thought upon. And it is solid. Esther loves to go back to her hometown and see the house that she lived in for the first 18 years and see that it is still standing there in the same place with the same trees and the same bushes. In other words, it's satisfying to realize the lastability of reality. But we want you to understand, reality exists and lasts because focus, attention is upon it. So you have the ability to take your reality as it exists and tweak your perspective of it, and it will perform to give evidence of the tweaking that you have done. You create your own reality, and you do it through the power of your mind, through the power of your focus, which is evidenced to you by the feeling of your emotions. Best conversation we've ever had.
Thank you. And I need to have a way to focus more on me instead of what is outside that's hitting me sometimes.
Well, there are a lot of things that you focus
So-
on that feel good to you. In other words, when you get tuned in to who you really are, everything becomes so much more beautiful. We're talking here about this unconditional achieving of a vibrational stance. So Esther is sitting on her porch looking at the beautiful things around her and feeling rapturous about it. And then she said, Abraham, but aren't those conditions that I'm observing, and isn't the reason that I feel so wonderful because I'm observing wonderful conditions? And we said, it's not that way. You felt good before you looked out. You were already there, which inspired you to look. And when you felt the inspiration to look, and you looked from that aligned stance, it was more beautiful than you'd ever seen it. The same things that had been standing there and dripping there and flowing there for years and years and years, she is now seeing through a different vibrational stance. It was her perspective that had shifted that made it all so beautiful. She was having an unconditional alignment, which caused then her attention to the conditions to appear different than they had ever appeared before.
And I have to hold on to that no matter the swirl going around me. I have to.
Well, embrace the swirl going around you and adore the swirl going around you and appreciate the contrast of the swirl going around you and accept it. Give into it. Don't push against it. Don't fight it. Don't try to make it go away, because that stance wore on so many things and they're all getting bigger, because the more you try to push something away, the more you become vibrationally engaged with it. So just sort of make peace with it by discounting the importance of it. That really is what unconditional love is. Unconditional love, unconditional clarity, unconditional alignment. These are all unconditional, meaning the conditions are no longer going to control my vibrational point of attraction. I'm going to control my vibrational point of attraction, and the conditions are going to acquiesce to that. I'm no longer a responder to the conditions. I am now a creator of the conditions, because I am achiever of a vibrational stance, which then attracts the conditions. Can you feel that? Can you feel that? Do you feel the power of that? You've all been so good at observing that it is a different mindset. We understand. But observation serves you some. But observation is not your friend, because observation just continues to perpetuate what is. Now, there's plenty of what is that you want to perpetuate, but there's plenty of what is that you don't want to perpetuate. You want to sort out the difference and give your attention to what's wanted. We're talking about creating from the inside out, aren't we? We're talking about feeling. We're talking about perception. We're talking about thinking and feeling, thinking and feeling, thinking and feeling. One day, someone said to us, Abraham, doesn't feel like I'm thinking my thoughts. Feels like my thoughts are thinking me. We know that's how it feels when there's a avalanche of thought going on, or when you're observing. But haven't you had the experience of walking around with someone and the day looks beautiful to you and it looks terrible to them? Haven't you been in the same vehicle or the same vicinity with someone, and what's around you, you're feeling lighthearted and they're feeling heavy-hearted, and you're experiencing the same space, but you're not experiencing the same perspective? So when you give up trying to sync up with their perspective or make them understand your perspective or talk enough that they finally get your perspective, but you just maintain your perspective, find a good feeling perspective and maintain it, then what you notice is you're experiencing more unconditional good feelings, and then law of attraction brings more and more people to you who are already there.